Brandon Sanderson is YouTube famous, but he is not the only one who is great at delivering some really nuggets of useful information for us who want to tell great stories.
When I say Brandon Sanderson is famous, I must point out that I didn't know who he was until Sarah Labrat wrote like him. He doesn't have as many subscribers as, say, Mr. Beast, but he is definitely worth watching if you want some good
Brandon Sanderson is a great place to start when you're a new writer. He gives us some great advice about perspective and finding the right way to write for ourselves, and I love watching his lectures.
Readers going into a book are going to come into it willing to give you a certain amount of leeway. If they have read previous books by you that have had excellent payoffs by the end of that book, then they will give you longer to establish your introduction because they know that
they are so informative. But my favorite videos are the ones where he is just talking while he signs books. If you want me to break down my favorite Brandon Sanderson tips and tricks in a future video, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out. Thank you so much. But as I said, not the only one who is a guru of writing advice here on YouTube. Abbie Emmons is also famous. If Brandon Sanderson is the king, she is the queen. She has some amazing scientifically based advice on writing about focusing on what your characters want and their misbelief.
When our protagonist Lucy first goes through the wardrobe and enters Narnia, are we told about what other lands and kingdoms there are in this world? No. Are we told what planet we're on? No. Do we meet or are we told about all the influential people in this world? No. So what world building is actually going on here? Just the world building that directly impacts Lucy.
This world building video is so interesting and so key to everything, because when you are writing not just a magic system, but if you are writing anything, if you're writing a room, what do you describe in the room? Do you have to describe this chair, the lamp that's changing colors, this pillow that's stuck behind me?
Lucy is the character we care about. We get to know her for much of the beginning of the story before we vicariously enter Narnia through her.
Abbie tells us that the only time you need to describe something is when it matters to the character. I'm sitting in this chair. You don't want me floating around, flying through the air in the story, so describe the chair. But instead of describing what it looks like, I'm sitting in it, I'm not looking at it, maybe describe how it feels. Is this fabric rough or soft? Is the back comfortable? Is this pillow hitting me in the bum in a way that is slightly unpleasant? And I'm going to tell you, yes it is.
We are experiencing Narnia as Lucy, not as some omniscient person.
This coffee cup you didn't see. It wasn't important. But now it is extremely important because I'm going to drink some.
Shamefully stealing the podcast format. But because history's boring, I'm going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart.
One of my very, very favorite places to go when I'm looking at trope and trying to break down what tropes have. Now, maybe we should stop for a second and identify what I mean by trope, because I think sometimes tropes are mistaken for cliches. And they're not the same thing. A cliche is, well, as Shonda Rhimes says, something you've heard before. But a cliche is something that feels really familiar. Like, it was raining cats and dogs. And it tends to focus on description. That's a cliche. When somebody cliches you, it feels disingenuous. And it feels really irritating. For me, when a cliche is thrown at me, or a platitude, even worse, I just turn straight off, and I don't want it in my writing any more than I want it in my advice. What I want is something new and something that feels fresh. So instead of it's raining cats and dogs, maybe it's raining chickens and eggs. Now you've heard it. Now it's a cliche according to Shonda Rhimes. But suddenly it's like, what? What do you mean it's raining chickens and eggs? What does that mean? Does that mean like you've got like this idea of like chickens, and it pulls a different image into your head that's new and strange and unheard of. But as I said, now I've said it, it's a cliche, so you're going to have to think of something else. But a trope is something that we see over and over again, and it is familiar to us. It feels like something that we're used to. And if you miss a certain trope, as Sean Coyne says in StoryGrid, and I actually prefer the podcast to the YouTube channel, so that is why I don't actually have him on this list. He's brilliant for writing advice. He's brilliant. I love Sean Coyne and StoryGrid, and I talk about it all the time. Not on this list. A trope is something that if you're missing it in your story, then your audience is going to feel like something was missing, and they're like, oh, I liked the book, but it just didn't do it for me. And they won't be able to say why they didn't like the book necessarily, but they will be able to tell you that they didn't like it. And it'll be because you're missing something. Maybe you're missing the first kiss in the love story. That would be a trope. Maybe you're missing the praise in the speech of the villain scene. That is a trope in most thrillers. If you don't have these tropes, your audience will feel like the story is incomplete. And a great YouTuber that breaks down tropes in a fun way is Overly Sarcastic Productions, especially their playlist on Trope Talk.
Tropes, cliches, recurring themes, etc. All the building blocks of modern literature and where they came from. Frankly, I'm surprised I didn't do this sooner. This is kind of all I talk about. So, with no further ado, welcome to Trope Talk. As is only appropriate for a first episode, let's talk about beginnings.
I love it. I could watch it. I think I've seen them all at least twice. Love this channel. Can't say enough about it. If you are wanting to kind of break down a trope, this is the place to go because it's entertaining and funny, and you can search the videos for the trope that you're trying to break down, whereas when you're looking at StoryGrid, you're going to have to listen to all the podcasts to try and find the information you need, and who's got the time for that? Still check out the podcast. It's worth it. I talked about tropes and in this way that's different than cliches. However, sometimes people are talking about tropes, they actually mean cliches. And one wonderful YouTuber that drops truth bombs all over you about the cliches that you're using that you need to stop using. Again, she refers to them as tropes. I'm going to call them cliches. This is Jenna Morrissey. Her channel is called Writing with Jenna Morrissey, and she is just like truth bomb mom for storytelling. Christina Krumrich. She was sort of my first big YouTuber. I love her. She's not really on YouTube anymore. She's mostly on Facebook and Instagram now, but I love her, and she used to be called the Truth Bomb Mom. This is what Jenna feels like. She feels like the Truth Bomb Mom for storytelling.
Mind-blowing, world-stopping, universe-bending, kissing, or sexing. If you're regular fiction, when a kiss or a bone is so unbelievably orgasmic that the heavens align and the angels sing and the person is rendered weak and submissive to their new love, shut the fuck up.
And she'll tell you, you gotta have this realism, and if you're dropping in these cliches, it's just, you gotta stop. It's just not good. And she sports the funny Santa hat at Christmas, which I thought was kind of fun. I talk about this poor woman all the time. I actually dreamed about her. I dreamed about Meredith Phillips. I went to her house. She was feeding the bunnies. I am such a nerd. I love Meredith Phillips. Again, no relation. She mostly blogs, but every once in a while she'll come up with a video that just drops these amazing aha moments on me. And one video about romance novels. I have been a naysayer of romance novels. I think a romance is a side plot that ruins a perfectly good story. I don't like a romance. I just don't. Which is why I decided to try and write one. And actually I decided to try and write a romance novel for two reasons. One, because Meredith Phillips posted this video a few years ago and I caught it right before Nano. And also I met Emma Bennett, romance author. That's her channel. She's great too. Again, mostly blogging, not so much advice, but they're both really great AuthorTubers and I love them both. And both of them are romance writers, and I thought, you know what, I love these women. I think they're amazing. I'm going to give this romance thing a try and try a romance that's my kind of romance. I wouldn't have started that journey without McClelland Phillips for sure, but also Emma Bennett. So I highly recommend that, especially if you struggle, as I do, with romance writing. Ellen Brock, she is very technical in her writing advice. Ooh. Ooh. She is going to, she's gonna, you know, it's gonna hurt a little bit, ow, but it's going to really help your writing. She has some great videos breaking down as much as a sentence, or looking larger at a plot and outlining. Oh, wow. And very, very good writing. Oh, wow.
Introducing a problem. If your character wants something, there needs to be something that stands in the way. This is very closely related to the character not wanting something, but wanting something alone doesn't create a conflict. A conflict occurs when the character wants something and then something stands in the way of what they want. So make sure that those obstacles are there, because readers will want to see how your character overcomes them.
And speaking of hard truths, iWriterly is another one. And, you know, her video, Does My Writing Suck?, was something that I was actually asking that question and found her. And, oh golly, does it suck?
Okay, so you're gonna have a lot of angry readers at the end. Maybe the character isn't conveying the right emotions at the proper time, or they're conveying the wrong emotions at the wrong time.
Yes, is the hard truth. And what you need to do is you just need to break it down and think about these things from the reader's perspective. And, you know, she's not mean about it. And taking her advice has definitely improved my writing. One of my very favorite YouTubers, and I've talked about him a few times on this channel, is The Closer Look. His videos are so entertaining and informative, and sometimes I don't even watch the movie. I just watch his videos. Does anybody else do this? Does anybody else go on YouTube and watch a review or a breakdown or like Everything Wrong With? Everything Wrong With is hilarious. But does anybody else do that rather than watch the movie that everybody's talking about? Because who's got time to watch a, like, now 3-hour movie? So I'll watch a video on Closer Look and I feel like I've seen that Marvel movie that everybody's talking about, and I actually find out everything that's wrong with it. So that's really great.
It will find quite useful. So, 1950s America, and powdered cake mix is becoming all the rage. Basically, it's this brand new revolutionary product where you buy some cake mix at the store, put it in a pan, throw some water with it, throw it in the oven, and hey presto, you've got a cake. You know, it's catching on, and it's becoming a really popular product. But then, after a lot of people have tried it and the buzzers start to fizzle down, for some reason, the sales were going down. And down and down. And when the companies approached all of their lost customers, there were several reasons why, but the main one was that all of these customers were saying that all they were doing was taking powdered cake mix, throwing water in and throwing it in the oven. It wasn't real baking and it felt like cheating.
This bit of advice about cake baking was possibly the best piece of advice that I have ever heard, and it's, oh, just listen, he's just genius. I just love this guy, and I could listen to him talk all day long.
Like, it didn't matter that the product was a massive time saver and was really easy to use. Like, that didn't make up for the fact that using it was simply an emotionally unfulfilling experience. So that's when some companies made one simple change. They removed the powdered egg from the mix, meaning that the customer had to crack an egg into the mix and then add water and then throw it into the oven. They added an extra step to the instructions, and the sales of cake mix in the US went up. These companies caused a great boost in sales of their product, and they did it by doing something incredibly counterintuitive. They made using that product harder. But that is a completely true story, and it's also the reason why subtext is such a powerful way to give exposition. So recently I was watching a TED Talk by Andrew Stanton, the director behind WALL-E and Finding Nemo, and he said something that plays into this, and he said it really quite well.
It confirms something I really had a hunch on, is that the audience actually wants to work for their meal. They just don't want to know that they're doing that. That's your job as a storyteller, is to hide the fact that you're making them work.
But speaking of entertainment, because we're here to be entertained, aren't we? Terrible writing advice is hilarious. Little animations that break down different elements of story. He's just really funny. And Lots of fun, and makes you look at it a different way, because when you look at the bad writing advice that he gives, then you do the opposite, and it's just, yeah, super fun. A sort of unconventional one is TubeBuddy, of all places. I know, but stay with me here. Because they tell us to do storytelling for our videos, and this is genius. This is absolutely genius. And where he breaks this down, which I'll let him tell you right now.
This 4-step process to tell better stories. Intro, problem, solution, outro.
And he breaks this down is very similar to how I broke storytelling down for my daughter, except I used 5 sentences, which is, once upon a time, this is what we were doing. We were trying to tell stories. And we were writing stories every day. So once upon a time, we were trying to tell stories every day. Until we realized we needed to make our stories better. And because of that, we want to watch some YouTube videos. And finally, we hit like on this video because Joe's given us some amazing suggestions. See what I did there? But the thing is, the great YouTubers tell stories. And if you want to know more about that, check out my upcoming video next week. Click that subscribe. If you are from the future, I'll pop it here. And we can break down how YouTubers use storytelling to tell amazing stories and why AuthorTubers should be rocking you.